was brought up. Her behavior caused so much stress that the entire family was on edge and at each other's throats. It eventually reached a point where we admitted to ourselves that we were unfit to care for her because she needed professional help. We brought it up to her, and she shut down the conversation so fast. I understand not wanting to go to a nursing home. I don't begrudge her that. But she would insist that she was independent when the fact was that if we ignored her requests, she'd be unable to fend for herself. She told us her solution was to keep things as they were. As long as we did things for her, she could take care of herself, because that's definitely what independence is. It was like talking to a brick wall. One day, while everyone was out of the house, we received a call that she had tried to go down our stairs, fell, and broke her back. The fall was not lethal, nor would it cause any permanent damage, which was a relief, but it meant that she would require lots of physical therapy and caregivers. The hospital assigned her a social worker, I think because of the care she would need, but she refused them by citing that her family, us, would take care of her needs. My father and I work full-time, and my mother has a slew of health problems and chronic pain that make it difficult for her to even look after herself at times. The idea that all three of us, even if we weren't fed up with her, would be able to drop everything and take care of it was as hilarious as it was insulting. When she told us that was her plan, we had become so embittered toward her that our decision was easier than it should have been. We removed all of her belongings from the house and put them into the storage unit that contained the rest of her items she'd moved out of her old place with. We called the social worker and told her in no uncertain terms that she would not be allowed to move back in with us and would need to find another place to live. She was furious. She sent a slew of emails threatening to sue for wrongful eviction. She didn't pay rent and signed no contract with us, and theft of property because we had touched her stuff. But we technically returned it to her because it didn't belong with us, and my dad paid for that storage unit. Those emails stopped pretty quickly when it became clear she wouldn't have a case and wouldn't be able to intimidate us into letting her move back in. When she was discharged, she did go to an assisted living facility that the hospital partners with. She stayed there until she recovered, and despite everything, being in the hospital environment and the care facility improved the rest of her health a lot. But instead of staying, as soon as she was able to discharge herself, she did. She moved into a hotel and has been there since. I visited a few times to deliver some stuff that had been left behind. Each time I visited, the hotel room was in a worse state. We're pretty sure she'd been refusing room service because she's embarrassed by it, but without anyone cleaning, it's become caked in mold, dirty cat litter, and unwashed clothes. It's been over a year now, and I shudder to think what the place looks like now. It's terrible, but at this point we're basically just waiting for the call that tells us she's passed. I know that her age and mind are partial causes of this, but there's only so much behavior and borderline abuse you can excuse away with that. Family accounts from relatives that go back decades before I was born also confirm that this is just how she is and has always been. I've moved in with my partner, and my parents moved to their dream home, and none of us have any contact with her. And she has no one to blame but herself. I'm not sorry that she's essentially getting her comeuppance, but I'm not happy about it either. I'm honestly really impressed that the hotel has allowed them to get it to that state. Like, you would think the hotel at some point would force some kind of inspection, right? Or some kind of worker would witness the conditions in there and report it. Shoot, I'm sure there must be neighboring rooms that must start smelling or get, some kind of side effect from that diseased room. This next story is a small update to my previous post where I didn't get a haircut, so my dad threatened to shave me bald. So I pulled my mom down during her lunch break to talk to her. Just for a quick preface, me and my mom work in the same hospital. She, like I stated before, is a nurse while I'm just a barista at the cafe on the main floor of the building. I asked her why she never stuck up for me when it came to Pops, and she tried to use every excuse she could, saying, "You need to let it go." I told her, "I've been letting it go for 10 years now, and I deserve an explanation to why you would let a man who has told me from day one he's not my father and made me fear him rather than love him do what he's done to me for so long." She tried to say that if she intervenes that things would only get worse and he would explode. I told her, good, let him explode. Let his probably last daughter see him for how he truly is and call the police. She finally caved. She explains that she does not want to be married to him because of his actions. She said he won't let her put anything in her name. The house, the cars, none of it is in her name. I asked, Why not leave and use your savings to get by for a while? I'm sure living in an apartment and getting a less expensive car would certainly be better than dealing with him. She admitted to me that she used all of her savings to get herself through nursing school. Now, I should say that the nursing school my mother went to was a bit different than a normal one. Rather than go through years of college, spacing out the classes, they cram everything into one super high-stress school year. The program isn't cheap, but has an extremely high hiring rate at nearly 100% of students getting hired into a hospital or clinic before they even fully graduate. My mom had done this program in 2020 while my dad was deployed, and then COVID hit. Me and my sister were stuck in online school, but my mom was not. So her schoolwork, coupled with both of her kids stuck at home, and no support from my dad other than him barking orders at her over the phone, stressed her out so much that she failed at the tail end of the school year. The class would kick you out if your grade dropped below a 70%, and she unfortunately missed one too many questions on one of her last tests. But the director of the program begged her to come back again the next year because she knew my mom could do it. It used the last of her savings, but she did it and now has to earn back all that money. She told me it's hard because now that she has a job, my dad thinks he can just buy whatever he wants. I've heard her get onto him multiple times for spending money on PlayStation, but he always says, "I thought the new Call of Duty weapon pack looked cool, so I bought it. Whatever, it's my money anyway." Or how instead of putting things in the Amazon cart and talking to my mom about it, we'll just now buy it if he feels like it. I told my mom I can sympathize with that, but asked why she never told me rather than make it seem like I was alone in my dislike for his actions. She told me, "It's an adult situation." I said, "Mom, I'm 19, gonna be 20 in June. I am an adult. I have 2 jobs and even pay or help on some of the bills and groceries. You should have told me a long time ago whether I was an adult or not." She apologized and said she was ashamed of herself. She then explained that she understood that I was right and that I didn't need to deal with his BS any longer than I already have, and that she would help me find a place. Even offered to help me talk to my friends and family and see if I can't go back home with them after their trip as a temporary place to stay. But she asked that when I leave, to not do it in a super dramatic way, and to just either leave when he gets deployed for a month in April, or to tell him way beforehand and to make sure there's no way he can try to shoot it down. She said there isn't anything she can do about the car, and she knew he wouldn't let me take it, but she offered to ask some friends and coworkers to help me move whenever I find a place and are able to leave. So I guess my mom's on my side. I told her I appreciate it, but it'll take longer for me to forgive her for letting him hurt me all these years. And she said she understands and will likely never forgive herself for it either. I'll update you guys with another post when the situation changes. Thank you all for your support. It means the world to me and feels amazing letting this off my chest. So I'm glad that OP and their mother realized and identified that this person is awful, abusive, controlling, manipulative, and are taking the steps to get away from them. What I will say is I sure hope that OP and their mom do not let their plans slip in any way to this guy. Because God forbid, you don't want that situation to go nuclear until after the fact. Our next story is, guess I can't defend myself anymore. So, for months, I already had in my mind that my father might be an entitled parent, since he always has in mind that I must do everything he says immediately just because he's my dad. Well, I guess that was just a supposition, until now. Today I'd have my second Krav Maga class this week. For those who don't know, it's a self-defense martial art, which I do just for fun and to make some physical activities. My dad asked me earlier to take the clothes that were just washed, and I said I'd do it when I was going to take a shower. At first he didn't say anything about it, so I stayed in my room watching some videos. After some time he came in questioning about my future, like, "How are you going to live alone someday if you can't even do what I tell you?" That, because I said that next year I'll hopefully live alone in another city due to university and stuff. I took a deep breath and said, "I told you I was going to do it before taking a shower." And he started screaming, saying that I was being disrespectful and I must do what he tells me to do because he pays for everything here. After that I asked him, "Why do you need to yell? I'm talking normally to you." And he interrupted me saying, "I'm yelling because you're being freaking disrespectful to me." And that continued for a couple of minutes. After hearing lots of yelling, I went to do what he told me while he was still yelling and saying I'll have no future, that I'm being disrespectful, and yeah, all those entitled parent arguments you already know. After that, I said, okay, I'm doing what you told me to. Can you please stop yelling now? No one needs to hear that we're arguing. And guess what? He yelled even more and came close to me, trying to intimidate me as he was almost spitting on my face while talking to me. As I learned on the Krav Maga classes, I kept my hand raised in case he tried to punch me or something, but started to pop my fingers, and he saw that and said, "Oh, you raised your freaking hands? What are you gonna do, huh? Punch me? Then do it. Come on, I want to see if you're brave enough." I again took a deep breath and said, "I'm just popping my fingers." And he went away.
Tomorrow is happening right now, because at Enbridge, we're modernizing our operations to ensure the world has safe, secure,
saying he wouldn't let me do the Krav Maga classes anymore because I was using it against him. That made me really freaking angry, but I managed to stay calm and don't start yelling like him. Since then, I just destroy every point I had until then. In the end, after lots of yelling from him, I tried to say that he was being childish because he always yells and tells me to shut up when I say something, and that he doesn't even try to hear what I say. And he said, "I don't need to hear what you say. You have no autonomy in this house. Once you start paying for your things, I'll start trying to hear you." And it ended with me saying, "I really hope you think about what I said here. I want to live peacefully with you. Thing that won't happen if you continue being like that." Well, I think that was just another reason to start making some money to live alone as soon as possible. Definitely don't allow him to bully you into letting your guard down, and definitely don't allow them to bully you into stop self-defense or martial arts or anything. I agree with OP's last sentence. I think it's time to work towards getting out of there. Our next story is, okay, whether I was or not the cause, this is surreal. So today was my grandpa's birthday lunch, and we sat on a restaurant. My mother couldn't stop doing not very pretty comments like how slow I was eating or how I should instead watch rather than eat, all with that snobbish faked accent. Then she went a step further by saying to my dad that I heard her that morning, a thing that wasn't true by the way. After some more mocking from my mother, she said it was torture to eat with me and my sister, which I answered with that she was the torture. Then I can't remember what happened because it was too fast. My mom said I was somehow spoiling the party, and everyone was looking at us on an empty aisle of the restaurant, and she went outside to smoke, and we haven't talked since yet. At first, I thought I did spoil it indeed, so I said sorry to my grandpa, but now that I think, this was pretty surreal. I don't even know if it's really worth engaging her on this. Like, I would say maybe don't even give her the time. If she's going to sit there and insult you, maybe just take it on the chin. Allow her to hurl those things at you and they just bounce right off you. Don't even give into it. Kill her with kindness. This next story is, I was forced to give all of my first month's salary to my well-to-do narc parents. For context, I'm a 25-year-old female living in a different country than my parents. I live in an expensive city where I pay my own bills. I work and study full-time. I was recently promoted from being an intern to a full-time employee, and the first thing my dad says is, "Oh, so you're giving us your first salary?" It was more telling than asking. All my life I've heard my dad say, "I will die the day I have to take a single penny from you." The irony. Moreover, they are well-to-do. Anyways, knowing the narcissistic rage I'd face if I didn't heed them, I gave them all my salary and dug into my savings for my expenses. I also just recently paid for a part of my siblings, 20-year-old male, vacation when he visited me, and yet they go around telling people how I used them only because I'm opinionated, like to be independent, and want to marry the man I've loved for 8 years as opposed to the man they would have arranged for me. It makes me so upset and angry. My parents are narcissists, so I've had my fair share of physical, emotional, and verbal abuse since my childhood. I was sent away to a boarding school in a different country as a means of punishment when I was 11 because I started acting out, lying to go hang out with friends due to physical and emotional abuse at home. So I basically grew up independently and learned everything on my own. I knew financial independence was my only ticket to freedom. By 18, I learned some skills, got part-time gigs, then I did tons of internships, saved up, bought gifts for my family because it was expected of me. I love buying presents for my friends though. At 22, I had to pursue a master's degree because there was a threat of an arranged marriage, and I felt that studying in a foreign university would buy me time and some physical distance. I knew my parents would use financial means to control me, so I suggested taking a loan to pay for my education. My dad turned the house upside down and was seething with so much anger at the mere suggestion. Anyway, all the while I'm studying full-time, I'm also working full-time to pay my bills. It was exhausting. My parents just piled on with nasty and hurtful comments every chance they got because they felt I was enjoying my life. I graduated top of my class, got a good job, and yet nothing makes them happy. All I hear is, "You're in this position only because I worked so hard to provide for you."